have to be followed. This is the entire layout of the protocols. The 4-5 gantry vehicle and overview of clean sphere entry protocol. So you've got the totally encapsulated suit that you have to contend with. You have to have a positive pressure environment in that suit, and the umbilical cords that take place at this stage are integrated into the clean sphere. Now, detail views. We've got the PINS device. What did Dan Burrish do when he got there? He worked with this PINS device, which is the pressure-induced needle system. He carried a briefcase with him when he got into the airlock, which gained access to the clean sphere. Down here I've got the representation of the 40-ton Dragon Wagon tank hauler. Shows you how they got the craft to the facility. And this is a rendering of the airlock here. This is a layout of what the 4-5 facility looks like. So picture in your mind's eye a large square building, somewhat similar to what we have here, and on all four corners you'll have this fillet radius. So the corners aren't sharp, but they're blended really nicely. And then on the lower floor you've got something called a scissor lift. It's the same type of scissor lift you see in manufacturing, in construction sites. And just above that, of course, we've got a hydraulically actuated scissor lift. There's a floor with a large circular cutout with something called the clean sphere. And the clean sphere, ladies and gentlemen, is not a complete sphere. It's like an orange cut in half, so it's strictly a half of a sphere. That's what we'll be considering here. Here you see the SolidWorks rendering of the clean sphere device, and then the scissor lift, almost identical to what you would see at your local airport with these concession trucks that bring this box up to the 747 cargo bay and then bring in the meals. That's the same type configuration that you would see at the bottom of 4-5. Here's the rendering of what the clean sphere actually looked like. It was 52 feet across. The plexiglass clear bubble was 2 inches thick. Think about the manufacturing that had to take place to get that there. Just an incredible level of engineering. Impeccable lighting was located on 4-5, which is different than level 4-1. There were 7 indented windows, or Majestic 12 observation gallery windows. They measured 2.5 feet wide, 4.5 feet tall. So there were 7 of those so that you could look down inside the clean sphere as you're taking tissue samples from the J-rod. That's what we see here. Now we've got something called the beehive lights. These beehive lights could actually move along trapeze cables. They could be lowered and raised through a telescopic device, and these were actually designed and built by J-rods and the S4 engineers. Just an impeccable level of lighting on 4-5. Why is that needed? Because you don't want any shadows when you're taking tissue samples from an extraterrestrial. Here you can see the edge of the 4-5 floor, which is in the yellow and black stripe right here, and then also the edge of the clean sphere bubble right here. That's what we're indicating in this illustration. Now, there's something called kick plates that actually are manually operated, and they seal the gap between the clean sphere edge and the floor of 4-5, the opening. That's what they do. And according to Dan Burrish, these were done by hand manually, and when you slam these down, there's a big bang that takes place. So it's something that he really stressed. Here we see the scissor lift lifting the clean sphere up to the second floor of 4-5. And then you can see again the hydraulically actuated scissor lift. Now, we're talking about the TESS, or totally enclosed suit. Similar to what you would see in the Gemini, Mercury, even the Apollo program of 1969. It's a positive pressure suit to keep out biocontaminants. That's actually its job. And when Dan Burrish was at 4-5 inside the clean sphere, he was taking upwards of 300 tissue samples from the J-rod because he suffered from a genetic neuropathy defect, and the overall program was to find a cure for that genetic defect. And one way they did that is to use this pressure-induced needle system that Dr. Dan Burrish personally told me was very small. He called it a Saturday night special, and it had a pneumatically actuated hose off the aft end of the PINS device. there was a small cartridge that was loaded right inside the shaft here, and you could take the tissue samples that was sent up to the analysis department. So that's how they did that. He also carried a briefing case with him with multiple needles and cartridges that went inside the clean sphere as well. Now again, remember, they weigh you in the nude when you get in, then when you drop down to 4-5, they weigh you in the nude again. So there's just no way you're going to sneak anything out of 4-5. This is a very well done pencil sketch by Mark McCandlish, who is again the world's premier aerospace illustrator, showing Dan Burrish being suited up in the test suit and then entering the airlock or decontamination chamber for entry into the clean sphere. Now, what in the world does J-Rod mean? I mean, we've heard this before. In its simplest terms, J-Rod means 15, because J on the computer keyboard is the 10th letter in the English language. The dash or rod was symbolic of the Mayan glyph that indicated the number 5. So you put those together, you get 15. That's also symbolic because he traveled from 15 light years away to get to Earth. So that's the definition of J-Rod and how he got his name. Now, 2 quotes from Dan Burrish that are very important. He said, "I have never met an alien, but I have met an extraterrestrial. The difference being that an extraterrestrial such as a J-Rod is actually a future human and therefore shares a same human lineage. A true alien, on the other hand, would bear no such human lineage." So that's the difference between an extraterrestrial and an alien. Now, when he was working there, you can see him with the PINS device taking samples from the J-Rod. And he was called Keala, a little bit of description of what he looked like. He measured 3.5 feet tall. He had dark brown appearance, very black inset eyes, a disproportionately large head. He had a small nose, long arms, and no teeth. Interesting to note that the designation for this particular J-Rod was EBE-53AZ2. That stands for Extraterrestrial Biological Entity, 1953 UFO Crash Retrieval, Kingman, Arizona, number 2. Because remember, the first one died on impact, the other one went to a Y-11 facility at Los Alamos. Now, during one of these tissue sample sessions, remember, you have to follow a certain protocol to approach this J-Rod. You have to raise up your right hand, the J-Rod raises his right hand, and then you take multiple bride streps together, and then you meet in the center. During one occasion within the clean sphere, the J-Rod, who was known as Keala, he broke the protocol, rushed Dan, and they had developed a friendship at this time. So this had never happened before, and he wasn't under attack, but Dan Burrish was startled about what took place. He stepped back and accidentally caught his boot of the total encapsulated suit on the grid structure of the bottom of floor of 4-5, and he tripped over backwards on his oxygen tank, and the J-Rod proceeded to infuse into him a tremendous amount of material having to do with future events. So it's incredible what took place inside the clean sphere. This is an illustration by Mark McCandlish showing the decontamination process within the airlock for entry into the 4-5 facility. Now, again, how did they get this technology to access these naturally occurring stargates? Ladies and gentlemen, they got those from the Sumerian cylinder seals, in some cases from the Baghdad Museum. Now, what you'll do here is you'll take a piece of wet clay and you'll roll that over the clay, the cylinder seal, and you'll end up with this positive relief. Now, according to Dan Burrish, what the government figured out how to do is you take a mirror, go right down the center line of one of these glyphs, and you get a mirror image, which is nothing more than a blueprint on how you access these naturally occurring stargates. That's how they did it. That's how they did it. Now, in 2003, something interesting happened. J-Rod was moved from his position within the clean sphere 4-5 facility. He was flown to Abydos Temple, which is down the Nile River. Perhaps some of you have been there, actually. And remember, he has to be in his own positive pressure atmospheric environment or he'll die. So they ended up building a stroller for him. And this is Dr. Dan Burish's illustration of what that stroller actually looked like. And recall, too, that they were friends at the time. So Dan Burish was sad that J-Rod could not go home to his family and be with his family. He had a compassion for him. So in this act of compassion, during the accessing by the government of one of these naturally occurring stargates at Abydos Temple, Dan Burish thrust forward that stroller and pushed Kayla into this stargate, sending him home. However, Dan and the stroller device were kicked out. He got into a lot of trouble for this, but it was an act of compassion on Dr. Dan Burish. There is a very interesting piece of nostalgia at the end of Groom Lake Runway, according to Dan Burish. There is a sign there that has multiple arrows pointing in every direction, and the sign says home. And this is a symbolic message that what takes place at S4, perhaps Groom Lake, home is underground, it's in outer space, it's north, it's east, it's west, home is everywhere. There's a symbolic encrypted message being employed in this symbol here. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think it's really important that we honor the courage that Dan Burish had to come forward and give us this information regarding the specific details of the S4 facility and providing all of us a potential for a very bright future which is on the nearby horizon, and I want to thank you for your attention.
We want to thank Open Minds TV for submitting their amazing video right here at Third Phase of Moon. And if you've captured anything amazing in regards to UFOs, you could contact us via Skype or Facebook. My name's Blake Cousins, and we'll see you again next time.